be taking our seats right away so we can get started. All right, the forum will please come to order. First, I have an announcement from the Physical Education Department about the field day. A reminder to please register at the gymnasium office for the events you wish to participate in on field day. That is, if you have not already done so. Notice to all the students on the Thailand training, there will be a very important meeting for all those involved with the third group going to Thailand at 6:45 Wednesday morning. That's April 15th. And also, we have an announcement. There's a number of them in the Going Places announcement bulletin. But attention faculty and students, tonight and Wednesday night, we have a big band concert here in the auditorium. We are pleased to be able to offer 150 free tickets for each performance. So please sign up at the information desk in the Hall of Administration between noon and 4 o'clock today if you are wanting one of those tickets for the big band concert here in the auditorium. All right, that's all the time I will take for announcements this morning. To give a few more announcements and to announce our special speaker for the day, Mr. Raymond McNair.
Good morning, students, faculty, and guests. The portfolio is just hot off the press. You'll be given a copy when you leave or as you leave. And in the portfolio, it will list a number of the students who have been appointed to various positions of responsibility in the college. In fact, we have quite a number. I think it's over 20 men and women's resident assistants. Must be about 25 or 30. And also the Ambassador Club presidents for next year. Both of of course, the men's and then the women's club presidents will be listed in the portfolio. I don't wish to take the time to announce them here, but you will get a copy, as I said, after the forum today. Well, once again, we're highly privileged and honored to have the founder and the chancellor of Ambassador College with us to continue where he left off in the last forum. So we'll hear from Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong once again today.
Well, hello, everybody. I shouldn't be here, but I came anyway. I still have 1 degree of temperature, sore throat, head cold, and I guess I'll blame it on the Russians. They call it an Asian flu. I think that's what it is. Just about the 4th time in 23 or 4 years that I've had it. The first time was back in 1956 at the Feast of Tabernacles. At that time, it came on me just the next to the last day, and I had to call on my eldest son, Dick, to speak for me on the final great day of the feast over at Big Sandy that year. That was the last time he ever spoke to the church. Although I think he did have a campaign after that up in Fresno, raised up a church up there with Rod Meredith. Anyway, I don't just remember whether that was before or after the festival. It was about that time. Well, I'll try to get back on the beam of where I was a week ago. I started out a week ago saying that in a sense, your being here all started when I was 16 years old, and an employer on my first trip away from home, a summer vacation job, had inspired me with ambition. And I just began to ooze with self-confidence. And I told you that had to be changed later, but I intended to come to that later, and I didn't do it, so I'll get to that first thing this morning. That was back when I was only 16 years old, and when I was 34, I had to change that self-confidence for another kind of confidence, which is faith. And that's not self-confidence. It's not confidence in me at all. I'd lost that altogether. But it was confidence in Jesus Christ above. The living Christ. I wonder if you realize that He is living. He's not dead. He didn't stay dead. God raised Him from the dead. And, of course, the world will be celebrating that on Easter Sunday. And, of course, if you want to know a little of the truth about Easter Sunday, listen to my telecast the Sunday morning, Sunday evening here on channels. I don't know which is which, but one program is on Channel 11 and the other is on Channel 9. And the one I think is in the morning at, let me see, it's about 9:30 or 10 or 10:30, something like that in the morning. The other, I think, is 8:30 in the evening. Anyway, I think there's going to be a lot of ministers that won't like what I'm going to say on the air. And but you can listen and see whether you like it or not. But I had got to up to the time when we needed a college. I've been in the ministry now for just a few years. I was holding evangelistic campaigns, usually 6 nights a week. And often those campaigns ran for 6 weeks in one place. Sometimes they only lasted for a couple of weeks or so, but nearly always there were converts. There was fruit born, as we say. I'd organize little churches, try to appoint some local member just converted to lead them. And a new babe in Christ can't read the other babe. Just couldn't do it. And so the church has never lasted over, anywhere from 2 or 3 weeks up to maybe 6 weeks or something. I don't know if any of them ever lasted 6 weeks. And I began to realize that it was all a wasted effort. I was going out preaching, people were converted, they didn't stay converted. Sheep get lost, the wolves will get to them, unless there's a shepherd to protect them. You see, the church is called the mother of us all in the Bible, and it's the duty of the church to protect the newborn, they're not newborn, they're only new begotten children in Christ. Now you take a physical baby just born. You leave it alone by itself with no mother to take care of it, what's going to happen to it? How long do you think it's going to live? Can it feed itself? Can it take care of all of its needs? Do you think it would last 6 weeks? I don't. I don't think a single baby would last 6 weeks. You better stop and think how much you need to honor your mother, how much you owe her. Because in nearly every case, she's the one that took care of you. Maybe that's one reason that God says, honor thy father and thy mother. First commandment with promise. Anyway, I came to realize, or should I say God came to show me, which is really what happened, that I needed to start a college where people could be trained to be ministers to feed the flock or pastor the flock, shepherd the flock. Sheep without a shepherd will go astray. The wolves will get to them every time. A newborn baby, as I say, without a mother or someone to take care of it, is not going to live. And these newly begotten Christians didn't live spiritually very long. So it came to the year of 1946, and I spent a good portion of that year, the early part of the year, and we took quite a baptizing tour coast to coast during the summer, and then again in the autumn. I spent day after day after day tramping around over Pasadena looking for a place to start a college. Now, I didn't have any money to start a college with. I knew God needed a college. I was determined if God needed a college and God showed me He wanted a college and wanted me to start a college on faith, not self-confidence, but faith in Him, I would step out and do it. And He would provide. Now, you can ask any president of any college, if you start without any money whatever and decide to start a college and build it into the most beautiful, best maintained and best landscaped college in campus in the United States or in the world in a few years, and you start without anything, how many could do it? He'd say, well, anyone would be a fool that would start it. I think that's what the average college president would say. Most people want to look to other humans and money, physical money. I couldn't do that. I had to look to a spiritual God for all of the funds to start this college. Well, I looked at a place right over across the Arroyo here. I hired a firm of architects to draw a plan of a small campus. I only envisioned quite a small one then. I thought if we had 40, 50 students at the most, that we get a few that might become ministers out of the group. Then I had a place that I thought of, let me see, it's out here on California Avenue. But none of the places worked out. They just didn't. And finally, someone led me, I remember, it was a woman real estate broker. Her husband had died, and she had taken over his business and was carrying on. She was a very fine lady. She was one woman who had become a businesswoman, but was still every whit a lady. A very gracious lady. But she showed me a place that we began to call it the McCormick place, because the daughter of Cyrus McCormick, the founder of International Harvester, had lived there. And she had married a man who became vice president of International Harvester, and they retired, and they lived in that place. And that is now the library. Now, that included the lower gardens where we hold commencement. And it also included the library annex. And the library annex at that time was a 4-car garage. It had been changed to a 4-car garage some years before, and before that it had been just a horse stable. But I had the two buildings, and we had a beautiful campus to start, beautiful ground. They only went halfway from there to Mayfair, didn't include Mayfair at all. There was, though, a tennis court, a little bit old-fashioned, just to the north of the library building. Later we took it down when we built some more modern tennis courts. Now, in 1966, I found that place along in October. And I was able to make a deal with the owner of it. Now, I came into a shyster lawyer. I don't know, in God's Bible prophecy, things work out. God does things in a duality sort of a way. See, there was the first Adam and the second Adam, the old covenant, the new covenant, and there was the first one, and then there was to be another, and so on. I don't know whether the devil does things like that or not. But maybe there's no connection, whatever. But this man was a lawyer, and he was living by his wits. Now, he had the highest law degree. I think I mentioned that last week. He had an ECL, which is a very rare degree given to very few, Doctor of Common Law from Yale University. He had been the dean of the School of Law at the University of Oregon, but he only lasted 1 year up there. Now, I made a deal with him, but I did get some pretty good local Pasadena lawyers to make out the contract for me. He wanted $100,000 for the property, which was a good price at that time. Probably a little more than its market value should have been. But it did include furniture and things in the house, which is now the library. And I got it on a lease and option basis. Now, I say, I didn't have any money. I did manage to scrape up $1,000 that I could pay down. But I couldn't buy it on a $1,000 down payment on a $100,000 deal. So I made a deal this way, that I would pay him $1,000 a month. And I didn't even get possession. I got nothing. That was on a rent, a lease and option basis. For 25 months, it would be on a rental basis with a lease. At the end of 25 months, which was December 27th, 1948, I would be able to turn it into a contract, a purchase contract, and buy it. I would have paid $25,000 provided I was able to keep it going with $1,000 a month for that 25 months. And then I was to have possession. Well, I was to have possession on July the 1st in 1947. And, but I was to pay it from November to 1947, July the 1st. And that was, about 9 months. I would pay them $9,000 before I would even get to move in for possession. Well, in the meantime, God was prospering us a little bit, and I was able to keep up those payments of $1,000 every month. Now, we had some money coming in, but the money was right up to the hilt was already obligated to radio stations. And by that time, I had a few secretaries because the Plain Truth was being published, and we had a mailing list, and we had a small office staff up in Eugene, Oregon. Now, I didn't mention why we wanted to have the college in Pasadena. I told you last week I had to go every week to Portland to do the recording because it couldn't be done in Eugene. There were no facilities there. So I went up every week to Portland, spent about 3 days up there. And, I think that was, by that time I was on the air daily on a number of stations. I would spend 3 days up there, and I would do the 7 programs in that 3 days. And anyway, I knew I needed to be close to Hollywood or to New York. The only 2 places in the United States where you could get recording done. And at that time, we didn't record on tape like we do now. It was what they called electrical transcription. In other words, it was just phonograph discs, big ones, 16 inches wide, great big platters. You'd get half an hour on one side. And if it was a full-hour program, they'd turn it around, and you get the other half hour on the other side, or you'd have to give them 2 of those platters. I didn't want to live in Hollywood. I think I mentioned that a week ago. I didn't want to live in Los Angeles because it was the home of crackpot religion. But Pasadena was very fine. It was really a more cultural city in those days than it is today. And I decided that it would be nice to have the college in Pasadena and that I wanted to live here and wanted this to be our address and our mailing address. So now I had the college started. Well, coming along about April of 1947, I found a home by the 1st of April over on South Hill that I could buy. Now, God was certainly performing miracles. Here was a very fine home, a 13-room house. I never lived in a home that big before in my life. And it was a very nice place. And I could get that place also on payments of a certain amount of money, and I believe that was $1,000 every 3 months. I made a payment on April 1st of $1,000. On making the second payment, July the 1st, I was to get possession. Now, we were also to get possession of the library building up here on July the 1st. So I went to Dr. Bennett, this lawyer, in April, and I told him that I would like to move a lot of the furniture over to the home on South Hill because I had no furniture, and I couldn't afford to buy it. Well, he said, now, you'll have to pay for that if you're going to do that. I think things had gone along that I could pay him an extra $2,000. And on the payment of $2,000, he agreed to let me take most of the furniture, but he, with his sister, was still living and keeping a bedroom. Now that was before April 1st, or by April 1st, 1947. So I had my lawyer make out a contract. I knew they told me I was dealing with a real foxy lawyer that would take advantage of every little legal term he could to beat it. And consequently, he signed a release for that furniture, and that gave me the privilege of moving it all out. And that all of it could be moved out by July the 1st. But we could move out a lot of it, that we could move it all out by July the 1st. But I made this agreement 3 months in advance. All right, now I had an agreement with him, and I had paid $2,000 extra besides I had to keep up to $1,000 a month in rental payments, and I hadn't even gotten possession of the library building yet. Well, came July the 1st. And I knew by this time what kind of a man I was dealing with. I had come up occasionally. He was living in the place, and he still was living there. And I hadn't moved any of the furniture out, but I had made an arrangement that I could on July the 1st. On July the 1st I came, he looked all around, saw I was all alone, so he let me in. So I went in, I got him back in another end of the house. And after that, my wife and my 2 sons came up and brought our suitcases. They came up to the front door, and I went to the front door before he did, and I let them in. And before he knew what had happened, my whole family was in that house. He didn't intend to give us any possession or let us get in there. Well, I said, now we're here, we're going to stay here. But I said, we're going to move a lot of the furniture out of here. No, he said, no, you're not. Well, I said, we sure are. So I got a piece of paper here that you signed, a contract says I am. I've already paid you $2,000 on it. Well, he had to let me move furniture, so we started moving furniture over to South Hill Avenue. But there was our bedroom and his bedroom that still was left there. So then I consulted my lawyers what to do. And they finally said, well, I had a piece of paper that said I could move all the furniture. So finally I told him that I'd give him just 3 days to get out. And I said, I want you and your sister out of here because I'm going to move all your beds out of here in 3 days. So he got, and we stayed, and then we moved everything over to South Hill, and we were there, but we had possession of this building, and I saw to it that we kept possession. He did not intend to let us ever get possession of that building. He wanted to first get the $9,000. Now that we had possession, then some things happened. We were to start at the college the 1st of September, but the college didn't start the 1st of September. City inspectors came in and said, we're going to start a college here. You've got to tear out all these walls. You've got to put in new electrical conduit. You have to put in new plumbing pipes, everything new. You have to make the building a certain fireproof, and many things had to be done. I didn't have any money to do it with. I don't know how the money came through the rest of that summer, but it did from July on. And we didn't get the college started until October the 8th, 1946. But that time we had about 25 or 30 students that had applied and were going to come, and when they found that we couldn't start on time, only 4 of them remained. One of them finally became Dr. Herman L. Hay, my own elder son, Richard David Armstrong, and Raymond Cole, who has since left us. My elder son died about 10 years later, and a girl by the name of Betty Bates, who has become Betty Michael. Mrs. Michael now, Mr. Michael is still with us. 4 students, but I had a faculty of 8 members. I had about 3 PhDs. I had about 3 more master's degree and about 2 with bachelor's, but they were to continue studying to get masters. And one of the masters was to continue studying at Columbia University, New York, summers, and whenever he could go there to get a doctorate. Finally, all of that was accomplished, and the college opened October the 8th, 1946. Now, the parents of the few of you, I think the children of some of those first students are in college right now. Another generation is here since then. Well, we had a great struggle. I don't know how I got through to get the college started. I tell you, one night I went to bed over on South Hill praying that God would let me die through the night in my sleep. I said, I just can't take it any longer. I'd been persecuted ever since I'd been converted up in Oregon by the Sardis ministers. All but I just happened to think of one who tried to call and see me here the other day, and he missed me, and I wasn't there when he came, and just happened to think, well, no, he never did persecute me. Well, anyway, all the other ministers of the Sardis Church did, and now I had undergone a terrible harassing, and next morning I woke up and asked God to forgive me for that prayer the night before. I said, this is another day, and I would go on in living faith in Him. So we came down to October, getting into Thanksgiving Day and very close to it. By the 1st of October, I began to try everything I could because we had a lease and option that was to be converted into a purchase contract on December 27th, 1948. 1948, we had to conduct the college half-time. I could only pay half salaries to the faculty. We had to cut it down to half faculty. And we went on a half-time basis because I didn't have the money to even pay the salaries. And how this college ever got started and got off the ground, the only way I know is that it is God's college. And by faith, He kept it going because He wanted it. There are others who want it still today. I'd like to grab everything, sell it, get the money, run off with the money. Always some people want to get, not to give. The two ways of life, get and give. That's one way to tell the character of people. Are you on the getting side or the giving side? Well, anyway, we came down to that time, and I knew that we had to raise some extra money. I couldn't just convert it into, I knew we would have the $25,000 paid, and already I had paid $2,000 extra back that spring, about April 1st. But I knew that taxes were accruing and had not been paid. I knew that he had not paid any taxes. And I knew that we had to pay the interest because the purchase now had to be antedated or predated back to November the 21st, 1946. And we had 25 months of interest to pay. And I had to pay the interest on the $100,000, less $1,000 every month. Whatever was the balance, after you take off $1,000 a month, I had to pay interest on that. And I probably was paying about 8% interest at the time. And I knew we had to have a few $1,000s extra money. I remember I was in Washington, D.C. and consulting a lawyer there. We tried everything and nothing worked. Finally, I just prayed to God and I said, I'm at my wit's end. Where is it? In the 104th Psalm. It's in one of those Psalms right along in near the 104th, where God says, they're in a shipwreck at sea and they come to their wit's end. They don't know where to turn. They cry unto the Eternal, and He hears their cry, and He delivers them. He calms the storm and brings them into a safe haven. I just threw the whole thing on to God, and I said, you will have to bail us out. I don't know what to do. There was nothing I could do. And it didn't come as a result of any letters I had sent out. I'd sent out letters, and nothing had happened. Now, at that time, the income for the whole work was averaging $500 a day. We were on several radio stations, and we were on daily on some of the stations, especially down in Mexico. We were on Mexican stations at the time, 100 and 150,000 watt stations. And so just like in the 37th Psalm, I believe it is, leave all to God. Rely on Him and quit fretting. He will see to it. He'll make your cause as clear as noonday. And He will see to it. Well, I said, I believe He'll do just what He said He'd do. When God told me to keep the annual holy days, when He told me to do this, told me to do that, I believed Him and I did it. and I believed he'd do this, but I didn't know how in the world he would do it. I couldn't see how. Then suddenly it was somewhere near Thanksgiving Day. I don't think it was on Thanksgiving Day, but it was about that time. And it was about a month before the due date of December 27th. Might have been about November 27th, I mean. All of a sudden one day, $2,000 came in the mail. Now, I don't mean one check of $2,000. I mean more money came in all of a sudden, and it totaled up to $2,000 when we had been getting $500 a day almost regular. Well, I certainly did thank God. The next day, $2,000 totaled up in the day's income. And the next day, $2,000. You know, that was a big income in those days. That wouldn't be very big today. And that was very big in those days. And then $2,000 came in. And that kept up. Now, wait a minute. Was it $2,000 or $3,000? I have to go back and read some old records. I believe maybe it was $3,000 instead of $2,000. Anyway, it kept up until we had a reserve of $50,000 on reserve. And some of the teachers had not even been paid their salaries. Well, I thought a lot more than we needed. And then I discovered that Dr. Bennett had a mortgage of $17,000 that he had not paid on the place. It came down several days before the due date, and I put the money that we needed in escrow. I had the money. God had sent it. I went to Dr. Bennett. He signed the sale contract, but it wasn't legal yet because it was, by California law, it was a joint tenancy deal, and his sister had to sign it. She was joint tenant with him. And he claimed she was too ill. And I knew he was lying. She wasn't too ill at all. But it got down to about 2 days before the due date, December 27th. I think it must have been about the day before Christmas, because we weren't going to wait until after Christmas on December 25th. It was due on December 27th. I had counsel again with my lawyers. Those lawyers worked all day and all night through the night. And they worked on a new lawsuit, putting it into Superior Court. And I went to him, and it must have been about December 24th. I don't remember the exact date now. He was living out east here somewhere, in the eastern part of Pasadena. Anyway, I went out where he lived, and I took one man with me. I said, Dr. Bennett, I want your sister's signature. He said, she's too ill. I said, Dr. Bennett, I don't believe that a minute. But I said, if she's too ill, that's too bad for you. I said, all right, now, I said, you have been planning to take everything from me and to get everything. You didn't intend to even let me get possession of the building in the first place. Now we've had more than a year of school, and we've had almost up to the end of the first semester of the second year. I said, now I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If by 1 o'clock, and it was during the noon hour, I went out to his home. If by 1 o'clock your sister has not signed, and if I don't call my lawyers, by 1 o'clock, at 1 o'clock they are going to be in Superior Court, they're going to take all of the money that I've got to give you out of escrow, where it's just waiting for you whenever your sister will sign it. And I tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to sue, and we're going to take it away from you, and we're not going to give you a penny. You'll get the $27,000 I've already paid you. You'll never get another penny. Well, I think I hadn't paid him the last $26,000, so he'd had that $2,000. I think he'd only had $26,000. He hadn't had $27 yet. Anyway, I said, there is a mortgage you have to pay over, and you can't send it to me until that mortgage is paid. The mortgage is past due. Now, I said, the man that holds your mortgage doesn't like you, doctor. He doesn't like you. He's going to sell that mortgage to me at par, and I've got the money to buy it. And then I'm going to foreclose the mortgage. I'm going to take the property away from you, and that other $75,000, you will go whistling for it. You'll never get it. He went to the stairway and said, Martha! Martha, come on down. We've got to go and sign this thing. He wasn't too sick to get out of bed and go sign it, let me tell you. Well, we had gotten through the second year of Ambassador College finally. By the time we got past that and we got into 1949, which was the last semester, the second year of the college, things began to get along a little better. The income was increasing. The work was growing 30% a year, and it continued. It was still on a 30% a year increase for 35 years. It was going along a whole lot better. Now we were in the second year of the college, and instead of the 4 original students, we now had 7. We had Mr. Raymond McNair and his brother, who is not now in the church. And let me see, who was the other one? I couldn't quite hear it. Oh, Ken Herman, yes. Ken Herman had come. And the 2 McNairs, and that's all that had come that year. Well, now let's see how the time is. I've got a little more time. I'll take just a little more time. I'd like to tell you a little about your deputy chancellor. It was, I think it was right after the Feast of Tabernacles, and he can correct me if I'm wrong on that, in 1947, that Sir Raymond McNair and his brother walked up to the front door of my home out on South Hill Avenue, and I never met them before, and they told me that they'd been listening to me on the radio. They'd come from Missouri. And I said, well, that's fine. And they said, well, I found out that I think some of this I found out later. They had wanted to order a Bible, and they had sent away to Sears Roebuck or Montgomery Ward, one or the other, mail order house, to order a pair of Bibles, a Bible of peace. Their father found it. He said, no, sir, you can't have 2 Bibles. I will let you have 1 Bible, but one between is enough. So they got... Well, I said, why don't you fellows come to Ambassador College? You graduated from high school. Well, they said, we don't have enough money to go to college. Well, I said, look, you'd have to earn enough money yourself some way. Can you get a job working outside of school hours between now and Monday? And I think it was on a Friday that I saw them. And I said, between now and Monday, can you get a job where you can make enough money for room and board? Yes, sir, we can, Mr. McNair said, Raymond. Well, I like that kind of forthright talk. He didn't say, well, we think we can. He knew he could. I said, well, you go get it and show up at the college on Monday morning. They did, and they showed up. And they had the job in a bowling alley setting up pins. That's the way your deputy chancellor started out. Well, he's still with us. And he's still here helping all of you. And he's been faithful all these years. And not only remained faithful, he's been getting more and more faithful every year. So he got started a little late that year. I think, if I remember correctly, it was after the Feast of Tabernacles. If I got a few of those details wrong, he can correct me later. Because I'm just speaking from memory going back to about 1948. However, the college really got going after that. It was a long haul. You need to see a film that they showed me just the other day. They brought it over to my home. I wasn't able to go outside. I haven't been outside for several days. I just came out this morning to brave the atmosphere and come over. I said, I'm going to speak to you anyway this morning. I'm not in condition. I really shouldn't be here. This type of flu that I have before, it's always hung on for a number of weeks. I don't have an extremely high temperature. It's just a low temperature, but it's just enough to clog up your mind and just handicap you from using your mind or getting very much work done. Anyway, the college has come along. We've had our struggles. We've had our ups and downs, like the elevator operator says. And here are you now, second generation. And some who came the third and fourth year are the parents of some of you who are here now. So I've enjoyed coming over and giving you this little history behind the start of this college. It has now become your college as well as ours and God's. It's God's college, of course. And I hope it's not only interesting but profitable to you to know how it started. It started as a work of faith. It started through faith in Christ. It started as God's college. It started on a different footing than any other college I know. God taught me as Christ in person taught the Apostle Paul, Christ through the written word, and that's still the Word of God just the same. I was taught by the same word directly. I saw that the Word of God, when God speaks, is different than I'd been raised to believe in church. I threw away everything I had believed. I don't know any other world leader in religion who ever got what he believed in that manner. I don't know any. If you're going to be with Christ, the whole world is going to be against you. There are not many that will believe God. It's the rarest thing in the world. You're in a college that does believe God. It's a very rare thing. I don't know of any other college where that is true. I just don't know of any. So, I think that's one thing you can thank God for, that there is such a college, that God himself has made it so beautiful. There's such a happy atmosphere here, and I am so glad that this atmosphere is once again like it used to be, a lot better than it was about 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I think God will continue to be with you. And I'm very grateful to all of you students for the spirit, the attitude that you're all showing. You're showing that you're young people of God. I hope that some of you will go to help supervise the still younger people that will be coming up to Orr, Minnesota this summer. Other things in the work, and you can have a very great part in this work. It's a very great work. And we have a great work to do with young people coming on, especially from age 12 and 13 on up. And you can have a very great influence on those kids coming along that are just a little bit younger than you are, but they look up to you. I don't know whether you realize it or not, but you seem like real mature, grown-up people to them. Just like when you were 11 or 12, others 18 or 19 seemed pretty old to you then. Well, that's the way you seem now, but you're still as near their age as that you can sympathize with them and many of their problems, many of the things that tend to lead them the wrong way, and Satan is influencing them every day that they live. And we need to counteract that influence. And you can have a great help in doing that with the younger generation coming on. So take what you learn here at Ambassador College seriously. You have fun also in the meantime. I don't mean by being serious that you have to make life a burden. It can also be a joy. But life is a serious business. You have this life just once. God isn't calling everybody in this life, but he's calling most of you. He's called most of your parents, or you wouldn't be here. And that is a wonderful and a marvelous privilege. I hope you appreciate it, and I hope that you give everything you can to it. Realize everything you have to be thankful for. Appreciate it. Put all you've got into it, and continue on day after day. And I hope I'll be in better form and shape and come back and talk to you when I'll be a little more vigorous some other time.